Thank you.
I'm gonna use some board. Okay, shalom, shalom, Shabbaton, shalom. Actually, right? It is the first day of unleavened bread. We are going to have a little um, lesson here. We're going to go through a little bit, see some things that we can take with us for the remainder of the week, and hopefully into the rest of your life. Okay, all right. So we want to start off here and read a few verses. Then we're gonna go into a couple things here. Let's read from Exodus 12 down to verse 16. Exodus 12 down to 16. Somebody read that for me nice and loud.
And I shall pass through the land of Mizraim on that night, and shall strike all the firstborn in the land of Mizraim, both man and beast. And on all the mighty ones of Mizraim I shall execute judgment. I am Yahweh. It's Elohim Yahweh.
That's Yahweh there.
Yahweh. And the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I shall pass over you, and let the plague not come on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Mizraim. And this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh throughout your generations. Celebrate it as a festival and everlasting law. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Indeed, on the first day you cause leaven to cease from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that being shall be cut off from Israel. And on the first day is a set apart gathering, and on the seventh day you have a set apart gathering. No work at all is done on them. Only that which is eaten by every being that alone is prepared by you.
Okay. All right. So we are going to talk a little bit about this week, the 7 days of unleavened bread. It is the feast of unleavened bread. Um, but we know the thing that kicks it off, is Pesach. So that being said, I want to just break this word down a little bit. Pesach. Only working in. Get over here. It's gonna say Pesach in English. Right, look something like that. But if we was gonna put it in the ancient, which I want to break down some here. Ancient. It's like this. Pesach. Right? So the ancient pictures of Pesach is a mouth, which is a pay. It's an open mouth. So with the mouth you would speak or make pronouncements. The samek is a thorn. So the samek it surrounds this thorn, so it also can prick. And it also it could also be protection. Because if you're surrounded by thorns, of course, it's gonna be a protection, right? And then you have the chet, which is it's like a little wall. So the chet, the idea of division, um, causes distinction, separation, I guess. Separation. Distinction, yeah, probably. I'm not even gonna say. Okay, right. So when we look at the word Pesach, right, Passover, right, on that night, the Most High told Israel to put uh, their blood of the lamb on the doorpost to protect them from the death angel, right? So when you look at the significance then of the word Pesach, the word pictures that it brings forth, we see that in terms of the mouth is actually speaking a pronouncement actually of wrath in regards to the Passover. The Most High said he was going to kill the firstborn of the ones who did not have that blood on their doorposts, right? So there was a pronouncement of wrath. We also able to we could also connect wrath to being over here with the Samet, because if I got like a bunch of these thorns, I can use this kind of as a it can be used as a thing that will bring pain to you, right? So wrath, I guess, would be that's bringing pain to you, right? So if I'm speaking wrath, I'm pronouncing wrath and making a division and a separation, right? And that's what that blood did when you put that blood on the doorpost, right? So that when that death angel came and saw that blood on the doorpost, there was a pronouncement of protection from wrath and a distinction and separation that was put on that doorpost, which caused the death angel to pass over the people, right? So when we look at that word Pesach, we're able to see, some of these things in regards to the pictures that it gives us, right? So when we think about this from a new covenant perspective in regards to Yeshua and what he brings, right? We, if Yeshua is our Passover lamb, and we are not putting his blood on our door, but we're putting it on the door of our hearts. Right. And so when we apply that blood, that Passover, that that lamb of Elohim's blood on our hearts, the hearts of our door, is doing the same thing, right? It's protecting us from that pronouncement of wrath that the most high has pronounced against all those that are against him, right? We find reconciliation from back to the Father. When we think about reconciliation, it's repairing a relationship where you were actually enemies and now you're friends, right? So that there's a distinction that was there, and now there's a new distinction that's bringing you into this intimacy and friendship, as opposed to being that enemy on the other side, right? So when we think about this from a physical perspective in terms of our unleavened bread, we look at unleavened bread, there's a lot of emphasis put on the physical acts that are incorporated in what we do. Like we read the verse in Exodus, you take the bread out of your house, you don't eat unleavened bread for 7 days. You make sure you do that. We go around and we look all of the under the seat cushions and everywhere and getting the crumbs out and looking in our cabinets and cleaning out all of our cabinets and getting all of the crumbs and stuff out. But really, this should really be a picture of something from a spiritual perspective, right?
Right.
The way that we do this thing in regards to the lengths that we go through to remove the leaven from our homes from a physical perspective, we have to do that also from a spiritual perspective, because the physical really is just giving us a picture of the spiritual, right? All of these things that we're physically doing is showing us something else on a spiritual level. So what we want to do is go over to the book of John, because we unleavened bread, we talk a lot about bread. Right? So we want to see what Yeshua had to say. Yeshua had a lot to say about bread.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to look over there, and thinking about what the master is saying, and apply that to our thoughts going forward in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So let's go over. I'm gonna pull this up here. We're gonna go to John chapter 6, I think. Yeah, 6 22. That's what it was. Yeah, 6 here. Okay, so let me see how many this goes down to. It's seal on him. Let's see what verse. That is verse 27. So let's read from 22 down to 27.
On the next day, the crowd that was standing on the other side of the sea saw that there was no other boat there except the one into which his taught ones had entered, and that Yeshua had not entered the boat with his taught ones, but his taught ones were away alone. But other boats came from Kinneret, near the place where they ate bread after the master had given thanks. Therefore, when the crowd saw that Yeshua was not there, nor his taught ones, they themselves also entered into the boats and came to Capernaum, seeking Yeshua. And he had found him on the other side of the sea. They asked him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Yeshua answered them and said, truly, truly, I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate of the loaves and were satisfied. Do not labor for the food that is perishing, but for the food that is remaining to everlasting life, which the Son of Adam shall give you. For the Father Elohim has set his seal upon him.
Okay, very good. So something something about the Master Yeshua, and especially when he talks to his these people who he has a large following at this point. Many people that he had many disciples beyond the 12. The 12 was kind of his inner circle, but he had many disciples, and sometimes when he talked to them, it seems like he didn't always pull punches back a little bit.
Oh, he did. Raw.
You know what I mean? So we see over here, and I think that he's doing this on purpose. You know, he's thinning out the herd, really. You know what I mean? When you have these people around, and everybody's not around for the same reasons, right? And he calls them out on it, right? You guys, I was over here making all these loaves and these fishes. You guys ate real good over here, right? But you following me around as a result of these things that I'm doing. But what about he says the food that is remaining to everlasting life, right? What about the spiritual side of things, right?
Right.
So he's causing these people to think outside of the box of physicality, right? He's causing the people to look for something more than just food, bread, right? Physical bread. He wants to bring these people into a spiritual understanding, right? So that's what we want to do when we're looking at what he's saying, and then also applying that back to unleavened bread, right? Where we are right now. So let's read down to let me see where that is. 31. Let's read down to 31. We stopped at 27. Read 28 down to 31.
So they go ahead, brother.
Then said they unto him, what shall we do that we might work the works of God, Elohim? Jesus answered and said unto them, this is the work of Yah, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. They said therefore unto him, what sign showest thou then, that we may see and believe thee, that what dost thou work? Our fathers did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat.
Okay, good. Okay, so when we talk about this bread from heaven, this over here where it says our fathers ate manna. Manna is a question. It's the name that they gave the thing that fell from heaven, but in Hebrew, it's a question. What is it? What is it? They was really calling the stuff that fell from heaven. They was calling it, what is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
What's this?
Right? Because it was just this stuff that fell from the sky. Let's see if they take you back to it, to the Hebrew over here. Ah, yes, they do really good. Manna, right? Whatness.
Said whatness.
What?
What is
It
this?
sounds like you wrote that in there, Tom.
I didn't write
it.
I didn't write that.
He right there in there.
Right?
That's what they called it, witness.
That's what they called it. Well, in
Because they didn't know
Hebrew,
what it was.
when they're saying manna, that's basically what they were saying. Because what is this stuff? It's
Wasn't it
this.
sweet?
It was sweet like honey, and it had the color of it was white like coriander. It says.
Was it then? Everybody who ate it,
It-
they had it tasted to their desires for what they liked.
it's
right?
an interesting
Yeah.
description. Pull it up. Exodus 16.
So if I like steak for the day,
Maybe it tastes like steak
Yeah,
to
it was
you.
like, it was weird.
I like cinnamon rolls and cinnamon rolls.
What is this?
Oh, they eating cinnamon rolls.
Cinnamon rolls. Excuse me. Oh, man.
16. Where does it talk about ground?
So 1631, it says the house of Israel called its name manna, and it was like white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like thin cakes made with honey. Let me open it up more.
Yeah, I thought it was like a cake taste. But wasn't it? Then the Israelites start complaining like, they wanna eat.
You know how Israel is. They always complain.
You know how y'all is.
Well, in this,
Egypt ate whatever we want. We want some meat.
when it first started, they was giving them, they was having quail and they was having manna. But then it got to the point
Well,
where
it's like a fish, right?
it's like a bird.
A bird. Where's that at now?
What, quails?
Yeah, I heard it was close to like
I got quails
chicken,
now.
right?
Yeah. I don't know if it's like, I think it flies more than a chicken or quail does.
Yeah.
Is it
but
a lab
I
service?
heard
People
that's
go
like the
people
taste.
go like quail hunting. Now you would have to go like game hunting. They probably have them all in a bunch, and then they'll let them go, and you sit there and shoot them. They're probably all quail's probably all like, you know what quail probably looks like a female,
I'm gonna pull
a small female.
in.
What's them things with a peacock?
Peacock.
I think it looks like a small peacock. A female, not with all the colors.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it does have like a little thing. But we saying all that just to say
Let's see who's eating
it had see, I knew it had like a little thing.
it.
Right. So as far as the manna, but it was this curious thing because you could only get it at Boker. When the sun in the morning, when the sun became hot,
It was too late.
it would melt away.
Yeah.
When the sun became hot, it would melt away. So it was this curious thing that it wasn't just, it was, what is it? It was wetness, right? So
What is this?
so when we think about Yeshua, what he's about to get into here, and dealing with this whole manna and talking about, he's going to get ready to talk about the true bread from heaven. He's likening himself to manna in respects to that. We have this question ourselves about Messiah and who he is, right? And what is he like? So we see that. I'm gonna go back over here to, I didn't leave from there. So let's keep on reading because we found out more about this stuff, what's going on. Let's read down to, let me put the numbers in here. Let me see where it talks about the thirst. Down. stopped at 31. Go down to 30. Just read down to 35.
Started 32, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, Moshe did not give you the bread out of the heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread of the heaven. For the bread of Elohim is he who comes down out of the heaven and gives life to the world. So they say to him, Master, give us this bread always. And Yeshua said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall not get hungry at all, and he who believes in me shall not get thirsty at all.
Okay, very good. So we see if we go up here, this here says, for the bread of Elohim is he who comes out of heaven and gives life to the world. So he's again he's making his comparison of himself to this manna, but he's saying a pretty heavy thing right now to these people in terms of the fact that he came down from heaven. Right? He came down from heaven. Imagine them hearing about this really for the first time. You know, they see that he's going around and he's doing these miraculous signs and wonders and whatnot. But now he's saying that he comes down from heaven, right? And making this comparison between manna, right, and itself, right?
I can see them having some problems with that.
Well, yeah, he don't even leave it there. Like he keeps on going in, like he's just trying to to really see who is on his side or not. He just is saying the most he's saying some hard things to these people who are saying that they are his disciples. But I wanted to think about when we think about unleavened bread, right? We think about bread without leaven, of course. Right. You know, matzah, unleavened bread. We compare leaven to sin.
Right.
Yeshua actually was unleavened bread, right? From that perspective, he was without sin, right? He was without yeast, right? He was without leaven, right? So when we think about this bread from heaven that comes down from heaven that gives life to the world, Yeshua, of course, talking about himself, we can think about Yeshua now in the context of unleavened bread as actually being this unleavened bread, this bread that is void of sin or leaven. He says over there, so they said to him, Master, give us this bread always. We want this bread that you're talking about. I am that bread. He who comes to me shall not get hungry at all, and he who believes in me shall not get thirsty at all. Right? So he's describing these things kind of in a physical way, but he already started off saying that, you know, we need to be looking at these things a little bit differently, right? So it seems as if he's kind of pushing the envelope of trying to cause these people to think about things in a different way. But let's see if they are able to accept these things that he is saying to them, right? So let's read a couple more verses here. Who sent me down? Let's just read 36 through 38.
But I said to you that have seen me and still do not believe, all that the Father gives me shall come to me, and those who come to me I shall by no means cast out. Because I have come down out of heaven, not to do my own desire, but the desire of him who sent me.
Okay, so when we think about Yeshua and his purpose, Yeshua always talked about the fact that he didn't speak his own words. He spoke what the Father said for him to say, right? And here he's doing the same kind of a thing. I come down out of heaven not to do my own desire, but the desire of him who sent me. And if we talk about being followers of Messiah, um, I don't see how this is in our charge as well, right? Understanding what the Father's desire is, and doing that. Um, a lot of times we get caught up in what we want to do, and it could even be things that are positive, not even talking about sin or anything like that, right? But are we trying to figure out what the Father's desire actually is and trying to do that, right? Because when we talk about the idea of following after Yeshua, following after him, that's all that he did, right? He literally, it didn't matter what types of things or how many accolades people brought to him. He was always, I'm saying, in his life as a man on the earth, was always pointing back towards the Father. I do what the will of the Father is, right? Um, so we have to be able to to do that same thing. And when we think about it in the context of unleavened bread, in terms of this period of time where we're removing these things from our, I'm saying from a spiritual perspective, we're removing these things from our lives that's causing us um, for pride to grow inside of us. These things that that we can look at and determine is leaven in our lives. Um, as we're removing these things out for this week, right? Practicing for this week, um, you know, we have to be able to extend this out past the 7 days. If we're going to say that leaven is sin and we're removing it, that it can't be something that, well, I know that this thing is leaven in my life, I'm gonna get it out for these 7 days, but after that, it's not that, leaven's over, like, right? But it's a picture, right? It's a picture. And unleavened bread is interesting because we have, there's other feast days, but we have to think about these feast days that are extended periods of time, like unleavened bread is a week. When you think about a week is a complete cycle, right? So when we have this thing that is a complete cycle, it's really trying to show us that this should be like a repeated thing. Like we're doing this thing for this period of time, and it's giving us a picture of a cycle, right? A cycle repeats over again, right?
A brother named James Lyon said, Shalom. Side note, he said, look up quail birds. They are a type of bird, so they come in both male and female.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they do. I was talking about the way they look. They look like
the way
they look like female peacocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have to when we think about unleavened bread, and again, when we are doing our introspection, looking at ourselves and trying to remove the leaven, one of the things that we should be doing is dealing with our focus, right? Because we see over here, Yeshua's focus is all about whatever the Father's desire is, right? And he's laser focused on doing whatever that is that he desires, right? That's his focus, right? So, as we think about unleavened bread, and we think about spiritualizing the pictures that we see inside of unleavened bread, one of those things really should be in ourselves, adjusting our focus, right? Turning those dials around and seeing what the desire of the Father is in our lives and doing that. Because Yeshua, he didn't do nothing but that, right?
Right.
But if we ain't dialing in, you just blurry. I don't know how many you look through like some binoculars or like a scope or whatever. You just put the scope up, it's blurry till you dial that thing in. Right? So we see that Yeshua here in verse 38, his sights is they dialed in for sure, right? But he's giving us again, he's giving us he's the blueprint, right? All right, so let's keep on reading down here.
Which one?
Let me see here. That was 38. We want to read down. Oh, just the next verse, 39.
Just the one?
Raise them up in the last. Yeah, it's the next one. Yeah.
39.
Mm-hmm.
This is the desire.
Oh no, 39 and 40. My fault.
This is the desire of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me, I should not lose of it, but should raise it in the last day. And in the desire of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him should possess everlasting life. And I shall raise him up in the last day.
Okay, so again, he started off talking about this everlasting life in the beginning in terms of, when you talk about life and bread, they're kind of a synonymous thing, but he's trying to bring them again to this spiritual perspective of thinking about it in terms of everlasting life. If we sat around and everything that we did in our lives and we sat there and said, what's this got to do with eternal life? Like we sat up here and did this like all throughout our day, all throughout our lives. I wonder how many things we would eliminate out of our situation. If we in our lives throughout our day, whatever it is that we was doing, you putting it on the scale of what does this got to do with everlasting life? I wonder how many things in your life would be disturbed by that process.
It's a good question.
That's one I don't want to answer.
Yeah, you know what? That's why I held my tongue.
Yeah. But again, if we're talking about unleavened bread, it can't just be about throwing bread away. Right? It can't just be about that. Right? And he's correcting his disciples here and telling them, like, you only reason why you following me is because I just did this miracle the other day, and we had it was done, and we had all this leftover food, and we ain't had nothing to begin with. That's the only reason why y'all following me for. What about the spirit in the situation, right? He's bringing it to him. He's bringing it to him. And he's telling you, this thing that I'm talking about here, this life that you could possess as a result of this bread that I provide, this is everlasting life. This is not something that you could just eat and just be hungry again in a couple hours.
So
You're not going to be hungry again.
like during this time of the getting rid of the leaven out your house, shouldn't you be doing like a self evaluation? Um,
Yeah,
like more of a
absolutely.
like a further cleanse of yourself.
Right, because you think about it from the physical first and then transfer it over.
Right.
Throughout the week, you're going to make sure that you don't accidentally eat bread. Right? And you already done got it out, but then throughout the week, as you go on, you're going to make sure that you don't accidentally, you're going to be sitting there at the store looking at labels and making sure all of that. You're going to go through extra steps to make sure the thing that you already done got out don't get back in. Right? So from a spiritual perspective, it's the same thing. If you was able to prepare yourself properly for unleavened bread from a spiritual perspective and look at yourself and see, make your little list, whatever's on your list, and you saying, I need to do something about these things. Throughout the week, you're making sure that you're addressing the yeast that you found in your situation. So absolutely, it must be that. Unless we just gonna think about it from just from a carnal perspective, right? But Yeshua is here. He's saying to his disciples, we can't just be thinking about the physical. You gotta take it to the other thing. It got to be more than just what we could feel and touch.
Right.
And we have to put that emphasis on it, right? Because he's taking it to eternal judgment. Right? He's taking it to ever. This is the desire of the Father who has sent me, that all he has given me, I should not lose of it, but should raise it in the he's talking about the last day. Everybody who the Father sent to me is what he's saying. He's trying to hold on to them. Right? And he will hold on. Except don't let go, though. Don't pull your hand away. Right? Because he don't make you do nothing. Right? And that's what we got to remember. He's there for us. Right? And he's going to keep us as much as we want for him to keep us. As soon as we want to go the other way, he's not going to jump on you and cause you to you have to hand over your will to the Father. Right? You have to freely give your will over to him. But guess what? If you do that, he's going to raise you up in the last day.
I always be looking at it like the effort that I put in, he matches the effort. Like, like, are you going hard with it? Yeah. I'm gonna give you the extra push too to go with it.
Right,
so
right. He
you
definitely
put no effort. It's like, no, you don't care. I don't care.
All right. We was just talking about the 401ks. Yeah, I mean the best ones are the ones that gonna double your money, right?
Right.
This is the best 401k plan there is right here.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Because he gonna match your situation. You put your thing in, he gonna put the same thing in. Right? But you gotta, but we have to think about things in that way. And when we think about things in that way, it helps us to move forward. When we understand that he is on our side, he wants us to have everlasting life. Right. He wants for us not to be thinking about things always from a physical perspective and allowing that physical drive and desire to be the thing that pushes us through life. But he wants for us to allow have a spiritual perspective and let that be the thing that pushes us through life. Because the things are connected to each other, right? Yeshua was super spiritual, right? But he's out here and he's dealing with these people, right? He's dealing with those people who need help, right? He's interacting with the world, right? So it's not just to say that we sit around and like some monks or something somewhere and grow our spiritual man in our closet or something, right? When we have the desire of our Father in mind, and that's what we're doing, we're getting ourselves right so that we can help get somebody else right.
Right.
All right, let's keep on going. Let's see. That was 40. Let's read down to he has seen 46. Read down to 46.
From where? 41.
41, yeah.
Therefore, Yehudim were grumbling against him, because he said, I am the bread which came down out of heaven. And they said, is not this Yeshua the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he says, I have come out of heaven? Then Yeshua answered and said to them, do not grumble with one another. No one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I shall raise him up in the last day. It has been written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught by Yah. Everyone then who has heard from the Father and learned comes to me. Not that anyone who has seen the Father, except he who is from Elohim, he has seen the Father. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me possesses everlasting life. I am the bread of life.
Okay, so this is another thing, right? You're gonna start walking around with your unleavened bread self, and I'm saying from a spiritual perspective, you're gonna be walking around, with trying to get sin out of your life, and then you're gonna start telling other people about the leaven that they need to get out of your life, and they're gonna be like, well, wasn't we just over there doing this and that, and you trying to sit up here and tell me about myself?
Yeah.
I remember back whenever you was over there messing with what's the name in them, and now you gonna sit up here and try to talk to me about what I'm doing? That's what these people gonna sit up here and say, right? They said it to Yeshua. Hold on, ain't you Joseph and them son?
Ain't you Joseph son?
We know right who you is. You gonna sit up here and try to be like you came from where?
But you know what? I used to say things like that about people, and it just really be the enemy that don't want to hear nothing that's like, remember, like I used to be like, I can't believe she said that when she did this, and now I see why that it's really not important, especially if it's a pure message.
And the thing that he's saying is it's the spirit that's going to draw them anyway. So when we hear that, we might be like get discouraged, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the spirit that's going to draw them anyway, because they looking at you. They looking at you,
right.
But it's gonna be the spirit that's gonna actually let them know that maybe it's a little more than just you.
I experienced that when when I was downtown, and that day I called y'all and put the guy on video chat.
Mm-hmm.
That time a friend of my mother's was like, "Get out of here!" He said, "That's you." He said, "You changed." China's son. And he started talking about her. China's son who ran the motorcycle club. And I was like, yeah, that's me. He was like, unbelievable, man. You know, so that goes to show you that they do look at you.
Mm-hmm.
There's also going to be people that judge you by your past that don't acknowledge the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's up to us to show with our actions, not just by word. That's why it's very important to practice what we preach, so we can draw them in by our actions.
I mean, you absolutely gotta. That's absolutely the case in terms of practicing what you preach for sure, right? Because we can't be hypocritical in this thing, right?
Right.
You can't give people ammunition like when they talking about what you used to do. Don't let it be something that they was talking about from like last week or something. Let it be some way back. Let it be something from way back.
Yeah.
You know what, this whole situation we having people ask me questions. Like I had a girl ask me like, "Can you teach me more?" And I'm like, "I can teach you what I know so far." Like I mean, I can, like and then I had somebody else just text me in regards to certain things. So it's it does draw some people. Actually, it draws them to you, and some people who want to stay how they are find reasons to not really want to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
They only want to be interested in certain aspects of it. So they're living and the curveball, the curveball actually for real.
I don't know what to say. It's pretty up here.
But you get most of those type of conversations from the people that you know.
Yeah.
I heard
that statement right there comes from
Megan, turn your
the people-
speaker up.
Sometimes it comes from the people that's most closest to you, not just people that know you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of people that know me that draws. They want to just to even see me. Somebody just inboxed me like, "You look so much at peace just now," and I don't put long paragraphs about this because I'm still learning in the beginning. But I might say something here and there, and there's certain things I don't say no more.
Mm-hmm.
But like most of them type of statements come from your inner circle.
Yeah.
So that's where those really come from. It wouldn't really come from everybody, it comes from the ones that you would be like the inner, like wow.
That know you.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
They know
They're supposed to love you and embrace that.
Right. So what we get from this though is to remember is that we have to understand sometimes we looking at a situation, and because of the fact that these people is sitting up here talking about what used to be, you just got to let the spirit do what the spirit do, right? Because it's not going to be your words that's changing somebody's heart. It's going to be the spirit behind the words, right? So that's what it's going to be. But it's interesting here when we're looking at what Yeshua is dealing with, because these people sitting up here saying, "Ain't you just this one? Ain't you just the son of Joseph?" And then, but he's talking about himself, and he says, "And they shall all be taught by Yahweh."
Yeah.
Like it's like they had some doubt, and then he turns it up even more, and comparing himself to the to the Almighty.
Yeah, he ain't back down on it.
Nah, he didn't.
Nobody coming to the Father but period.
Exactly. So you're not making those statements, but you are being steadfast in your situation though. Right. You're not going to allow whatever's coming back at you to cause you to, maybe they right. Mm-hmm. Maybe I ain't who I'm sitting up here trying to say that I am.
Hey, but I'll tell you another incident. Even when I was in darkness, I was in the trap house, selling crack and heroin and stuff like that. But a couple of them acknowledged my uneasiness because I started stressing how weird it felt. And I knew I shouldn't be doing this, And I was like, man, I got to go. I don't feel like this is not right. This one, I was like, God don't like this. I ain't supposed to do this. But because I was saying that, it it piqued their interest in them saying, why would you say something like that? So I get into the spiel. Make a long story short, now that I'm in the truth, I see a guy, I'm not gonna say his name, but he reminds me of that all the time. He said, it was that day who made me go read and study. And I was shocked, man. So you never know when the power of the Ruach is using you, even in bad times. Because he works in mysterious ways, That's what it showed me. And that, all those things strengthen me now when I see that.
Yeah, it's not gonna always be like an instant thing. Like you sit up there and tell somebody something like, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay, I'm in."
Yeah.
When you let someone discourage you, it's just because that will be allowing the enemy to. That's basically the enemy. It's not that person. Anytime somebody's reminding you, like
it's spiritual.
It's not even them talking. That's straight.
It's spiritual. Like, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. So we got to remember those things. Just like if we following after Yeshua, we're moving forward by the Ruach.
Right.
But if you on the outside, you got all types of things that's motivating your situation. If you never got on the side of the Creator, then you susceptible to everything that's out there. Right. And that's just what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? So we have to remember whose we are, because he's saying if you believe in me, if you're gonna follow after me, I'm gonna raise you up in the last day. I'm gonna be there for you.
Yeah, be there for me. I be there for you.
Okay, let's keep on going. We're not even gonna be in here too long. Okay, so read 47 down to I'll tell you when to stop. Start at 47.
All right. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me possesses everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread which comes down out of heaven, so that anyone might eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which came down out of heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he shall live forever. And indeed, the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world.
Okay, very good. So he said something interesting right there, right? He said, indeed, the bread that I shall give is my flesh,
right,
which I shall give for the life of the world. So we're talking about Yeshua, and we comparing them to unleavened bread. But he's a man though. So how could we talk about his flesh and it be unleavened? How can we talk about the flesh of Yeshua and also compare that flesh to unleavened bread,
right,
that we're gonna eat? If we're gonna say leaven is sin.
Ain't no sin in his flesh. Ain't no sin. He ain't committed the sin. No
right.
sin. So he's in the flesh.
I guess we could say that. That wasn't the answer I was looking for.
Yeah. He was close though.
You're not wrong.
Not wrong.
Well,
wait, what's the question?
I'm saying he said the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the world, for the life of the world. So I'm saying, if we gonna say, well, if I'm gonna say, I don't know who else is gonna say it too. If I'm gonna say that his bread is unleavened bread, if he is, I'm saying, how do we say that his flesh is unleavened bread if he has this sinful flesh? Because even if we just say that it's just a potential, if it's just yeast there, the potential's there. We removing the potential by getting the yeast out.
But by his spirit, like would be like it's. I'm pretty sure that if I was in that town with him, I'm pretty sure that I would see the spirit. Like I. So that's how you know.
Well, I mean, I'm in the persuasion that we're born into sin, not born sinners. So I don't believe that sin is in the flesh until until you commit the sin. You know what I mean? So like until you basically
Acknowledge
enact
Yeah.
these sinful things,
I
then
I
sin
believe that too.
is in your members. You know what I mean? But if you never cross that line, then he was who he was, which is that perfect sacrifice
Right.
that was slain for the sins of the world.
Yeah, if you think about it, because leaven rises. Leaven causes the bread to rise. It's just like sin can do that.
Mhm.
Like we can have a thought. Like there's a scripture that talks about that, like anger and things like that. How it starts with a thought. And it gives birth to that thought, but if we entertain it, it arises and becomes sin
Right.
according to our actions. So therefore, being that Yeshua, well, he was born with a sinful nature, but did not sin. He knew how to suppress that leaven, which caused him to have no leaven. He never allowed it to rise. So therefore, he didn't commit no acts of sin. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, I had to check with my Moray about that.
But that's not what I'm getting
He's
at.
still not looking for that. I don't get no A today. Oh man.
No, you get an A for effort.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we have to think about the timing of unleavened bread, right?
Yeah.
Yeshua was the Passover lamb. But you can't eat a lamb until it's dead, right?
That's true.
It's the risen. It's the risen.
Exact time, like when his
he died when you was supposed to kill the lamb, the
Right.
Passover lamb. That's when
Right.
he died. He died at the time when the lamb, right? So I'm saying that when we eat his flesh,
Right.
we eating that risen flesh,
The lamb.
the spirit body flesh, right?
Right.
That we eating, the already slain
Right.
bread. Like he had to die for those purposes, right?
Right.
He had to die. He couldn't just have been alive.
He was his blood was the Passover that we had on the door.
Right, on the
Yeah,
door,
on the door, right.
on the door of your heart.
Right.
On the door of your heart, because when y'all was doing that whole process, when he was getting rid of the firstborn, it was a symbol of saying what I'm going to do. I'm going to sacrifice mine as well. Which was the slain lamb, which caused them to paint the blood over top of the doorpost when the angel of death passed over them, because they acknowledged they was covered by the blood, which we are today when we embrace Yeshua and his teachings and acceptance fully, not half, but fully. We are too covered by the blood of the slain lamb.
When they saw Yeshua after he was resurrected, sometimes they knew who it was, and sometimes they didn't know who he was. Right? He had a new body. When he talks about eating his flesh, we eating his flesh on the other side. Right? That resurrected flesh.
Yeah.
That's what we eating over there, right? We're gonna keep on talking about this, but we're gonna read down some more. Let's read. I'll stop you. Let's see. Where was we at here? 52. Go ahead.
The Yehudim therefore were striving with one another, saying, "How is this one able to give us flesh to eat?" Yeshua therefore said to them, "Truly, truly," I love when he say that. "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the son of Adam and drink his blood, you possess no life in yourself. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood possesses everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. For my flesh is truly food, and my blood is truly drink. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood stays in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who feeds on me shall live because of me. This is the bread which came down out of heaven, not as your fathers ate the manna and died. He who eats this bread shall live forever. He said this in the congregation teaching in Capernaum.
Read 62.
Therefore, many of his taught ones, have heard said, this word is hard and is able to hear it.
Who is able
Oh,
to
who
hear
is able to hear it? Sorry, I need glasses, man.
They just got lost just right there.
They just got lost.
Just imagine that.
Who is able to hear it?
Just imagine that. Somebody saying to me, drink my blood and eat my flesh.
right, exactly.
Somebody you've been walking with, like, yeah, man, you gotta eat my blood. Drink my blood and eat my flesh.
That sounds crazy.
They be thinking carnally, saying, huh? You want me to chew on your arm or something? You crazy? Not understanding what he meant in the spiritual realm.
Right. So we know, right? If we look at Genesis 9 and 4, Genesis 9 and 4, let me read it. I got it already here. Genesis 9 and 4. But do not eat flesh with its life, is blood. Right? You can eat flesh, but don't eat it with the blood. Life is actually in the blood. Life is in the blood. Right? So he's giving them, he started talking about life in the first place, right? But he's bringing all of these things together, but now he's, talking about blood and life and eating his flesh. But his flesh is the bread. His flesh is the bread of life, right? He's saying all of these things, right?
Right.
But he started off by trying to get these people to stop thinking about it from a physical perspective. Human beings ain't kosher. You can't eat human beings, right? You can't drink blood. Human beings ain't kosher in the first place. But if human beings was kosher, you can't eat blood. But he already told them at the beginning, y'all should never think about this from a physical perspective. And I'm going higher. I'm not talking about what you think I'm talking about. But and these ones, a lot of these ones here, they was like, I can't. This is just, I'm not able to hear what you're saying. I can't even hear it. Let's see, Leviticus 17, 11, and 12 says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the slaughter place to make atonement for your lives, for it is the blood that makes atonement for the life. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, no being among you eats blood, nor does any stranger who sojourns among you eat blood. Right? So this is a principle from the Torah. Yeshua is not speaking against the Torah. We know that. So these disciples, they left because they really had no understanding from the beginning. They couldn't have, because you couldn't have thought that he was talking about eating real blood and eating his actual flesh. But again, to go back to what he said already, it's about the Father drawing you in the first place. It's about the Spirit drawing you. So the ones who wasn't being pulled by the Spirit were these ones that was leaving, right? But again, when we think about the flesh of Messiah and the blood of Messiah, again, with unleavened bread, he is unleavened bread, because the bread that we eating, the blood that we're using is the blood that he shed when he died. So he is that unleavened bread. If we was to eat his leavened bread, what you saying is true in terms of that nature being potential, but I'm not gonna eat his potential though. I'm not gonna eat his potential. I'm gonna eat him after he done already got rid of the potential. It's not like I'm eating sin, but the yeast packet is the potential, right? So I agree with what y'all saying in terms of Yeshua and being sinless and all that.
But the resurrection was pure new life.
It was new life,
Straight pure.
and we attach ourselves to that. He had to die.
Well, if you look at it, they had attached themselves before he died.
Well, bro, it was solidified with his death.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
We went to the next
The
level.
the ones that stayed, they was bonded already, and especially his inner circle, the 12, dude. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's keep on going because we almost done with this. We read down to
60.
okay, so start reading at 60. We start. Oh yeah, start reading at 61.
When Yeshua knew himself in himself that his disciples murmured at it, he said unto them, doth this offend you? What and if ye shall see the Son of Man ascend up where he was before? It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit, and they are life. But there are some of you that believe not. For Yeshua knew from the beginning who they were that believed not, and who should betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you, that no man cometh unto me except it were given unto him by my Father.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, so again, everybody is not gonna get it. Everybody is not. I mean, these is people who was walking around with Yeshua. They saw his mighty works. They saw all the things that he had done. And when he started sitting up here talking about this stuff here, they was out. But right. But this ain't no different than what we seen back over in Exodus, right? Them people heard the Most High speaking at the top of the mountain.
Right.
They did the same thing. Well, it was a little different, but basically in faith, they walked away.
Always.
Real quick, right? Same thing. So everybody's not going to hear the message. Everybody's not going to accept that you are unleavened.
Right.
Everybody ain't trying to join you in your unleavenedness.
I would say most people, wouldn't you?
Well, unfortunately, many are called, but few are chosen. Unfortunately, that's the case. We don't know who that is.
We like to keep hope alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, then you want to hear something weird now. You know, I always say X this, X that. But there was a reason why we was unequally yoked. But recently, I would say not too far recently, I was called everything except for what I am today. I was called undercover Muslim, fake a light, and and snake and Satan, and you're the same. You ain't changed. You ain't gonna never change. And the whole time they was saying it, right? Check this out. I'm looking at them. It wasn't even them. I seen like an aura hovering over them with their tongue hanging out, trying to tease me. And I looked at them and I told them straight up. I said, you know what? I said, I'm gonna duck that stuff you throwing at me because I ain't even you saying it. And messed them up. I saw that, man. I saw that, but see, I didn't get upset. I was happy that I was able to see that. So I left saying, wow, y'all, you really. I said, you show me in a lot of things, in a lot of ways how real you are in order for me to see stuff like that. I know I changed,
Mm-hmm. And the enemy hates change.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy hates change. He hates to see When he loses a comrade, it's just like
Comrade.
he hates it. He
Yeah.
hates any and everything around him.
Yeah, to pull you back or scare you away.
Scare you
I mean,
away,
there's been people
discourage
that
you. I mean, just everything.
Especially when
Everything.
Tambellini
Places,
offered
things,
that money to
everything.
me. When Tambellini offered me that money and told me the beast is still in you. That beast is still in you, Diamond. And I left. I thought about that, and it kind of spooked me out for real. For real, it really did. It kind of spooked me out. And like we was talking about yesterday, keeping your foot on that old person, keeping your foot on it. I said, that's what I gotta do, man. You know, do I feel it? Do I feel the beast rattling the cage, begging for the keys? Yes, I do. But I refuse to give it to him.
Yeah.
Can't do that, partner.
So
Stay
so
there.
we have to remember the words that Yeshua spoke. He's talking to these disciples here. Um, we have to be able to think about these things from a spiritual perspective. We have to, despite the fact that we're in this physical world, right? We have to be able to view these things from a spiritual perspective, right? He gives us these physical feast days for a spiritual reason, though, right? So when we think about, again, unleavened bread, when we think about eating the unleavened bread who is Messiah, um, and drinking that his blood, applying his blood, his life, right? Because the life is in the blood, applying his life to our life,
Right.
right? And we have to, when we do that, allow his life to cause us to have our desires be about the Almighty's desires, right? And when we're thinking about going through life in that way, it's helpful to be able to maintain a particular focus, right? Yeshua walked around and said, it's not about my desire, it's about what the Father desires,
Right.
right? And again, unleavened bread this week is a picture, it's a pattern for our life, right?
Right.
It's temporary just because it's just a feast to cause us to remember.
Right.
But it's our life that we're going through, living a life of unleavened bread, living a life of recognizing leaven and removing it, right? Living a life of getting and keeping sin out of our lives and making it to be something that's not part of our situation, right? So as we go forward, yes, remember to keep the leaven out as we go through. Go ahead. What you guys say?
No, it's something I gotta add to everything that I was waiting to.
Okay, yeah. So as we remember to go through this week, and surely do all of the things in terms of keeping that leaven out, and maintaining your leaven less situation. Allow this picture to be something that pushes you forward through your life, where you're always on the lookout for those things that's contrary to the Almighty. You're always on the lookout for those things that's going to cause your flesh to rise up and get those things out of the way, right? Okay, what was you going to say?
So it was like a little testimony in regards to this. Yesterday, what was the ceremony yesterday? That wasn't the first day. What was that we did yesterday?
Passover.
So okay, so
Well, by the time we did it, it really was the first day.
okay. So I've already been in this transition, and with the whole now me just understanding the 11 spiritual realm, I'm always constantly like I have conversations with the Most High all the time. Sometimes about battling something with myself, my thoughts. But yesterday during the Shabbat study we did, or with the statement of sin when you holding on to a thought, and you're holding on to. One issue that he showed me in this preparation of getting things out that I have, and this was over the past week, that I hold on to, like when something bothers me, and it can be a negative bother, like to where it upsets me. I'll really hold on, even if, especially if I know that I'm right. But I'll hold on to it longer than I should. And me hearing that yesterday, like I'm glad, because that's something that, because I've been doing good on a lot of. There's so many things I didn't change just like this, but I didn't even realize that that's an issue. I realized that yesterday. So it's like now is I'm like, okay, I got to work on this. This got to stop. So it was just like a nice little testimony.
That's good.
And
That shows your growth too.
I go through things. I've heard it be said, you ain't changed, you're not going to change, and then I'll have that, but then he'll use something else to show me, no, you're doing it.
And even if you don't see something right away, how them people sitting up there saying it, they say it to Yeshua.
Yeah.
They say it to Yeshua. So
it's and that's another understanding just today, just understanding that the Spirit's going to he's going to use what he can to say whatever. But that was just a little testimony. Because I didn't know that was an issue. I'm thinking I'm allowed that. I'm thinking I'm human. I can be mad for a day, but that's really not right. And it's been said, but I really didn't think it was like a conviction of sin. Like,
I mean, because it's going to take you to that place.
Right.
I mean, the longer you let that thing sit there, it's going to act just like yeast and just let that thing grow.
Yeah.
You might just be a little man now, but now a couple days gone by, you've been thinking about it, and it turned into something else.
And I've been told it's wrong, but in my mind, I'm like, you're allowed to be mad. It's okay to be mad. It's just this. But now it's like, oh, that really is bad.
You had to get over that stuff. Yeah. All right. Because that's where it's going to.
You didn't respond the way you wanted to. So
and don't let it be that I'm right. I'm really going to hold on to it. But I'm glad that
and then go back like, wait,
When you don't let go of, certain things, it can affect other things.
Right.
Like if you're holding on to a thought or a feeling, it can, spill into something that has nothing to do with that situation. You could just be frustrated behind the thought.
That was said to me, but I just felt like it was okay until we was talking yesterday, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to, so that's just a part of me that's seriously, I gotta let go. Like that's the.
Now, see, you know what you done did, right?
11, that gotta be right.
You know what you done did by sitting there pronouncing this stuff, right? You got all these witnesses over here. So when I catch you sitting up here talking about how somebody did something to you, I could be like, remember that time whenever we was sitting at the table and you was like, I'm gonna be. Okay, so just so you know. Okay, all right. So that being said, we want to go ahead and be done with this for now. We want to be able to continue on with our unleavened bread, and we wish everybody a Hag Sameach.
Hag Sameach. Sound like I'm about to spit on somebody.
Yeah. All right. Shalom.
Shalom.
That's that.
Enjoy.
That's that.